DJ. Yeah.
When I was 12 years old,
Right.
I heard Mecca and the Soul Brother.
Right.
I'm not just saying this because our next guest produced Mecca and the Soul Brother.
Right.
But it became my favorite album in the history of hip hop.
Wow.
And still is to this day. I used to say on this show that if I had to go to a deserted island,
Right.
and I could take one album with me to listen to the rest of my life, it would be Mecca and the Soul Brother.
Classic.
I became a fan and a disciple of our next guest, pretty much studied all of his work.
Yep.
The way that he sampled. If he did an album, I would go buy the songs that he sampled. I'd go buy the album. If he sampled someone, I'd buy the album that he sampled.
Right.
Just to hear the sample so I have a better understanding of music. I've studied this guy both as an MC
Right.
and a producer. It's very rare that we're just having an amazing show today when you get one of the GOATs. When I can really say that we have one of the GOATs on our show, this is one of those people. Joining us on the Land State Radio Network tonight, the one and only Pete Rock, the Chocolate Boy Wonder.
Yes!
It is a honor and a privilege to have you on the show with us, man. It's
Peace, bro.
thanks for joining us.
No doubt, definitely, man. What up, Ramp?
I love you to death, cousin.
What's going on with you, bro?
It's that return of that 12, buddy. It's time to get these dudes to business.
Yeah, you already know. You already know how it go down.
Man.
So that's kind of the first question I'm going to ask. If you can kind of tell us about the new album that dropped last week, the return of the SP12. I know that there are a lot of cuts on there, like the John y'all did off the Menace to Society is on there. So it's from a different era, but obviously great music, stuff that you did on your SP12. Tell us about the album that just came out.
I mean, it's a bunch of old beats that I just had sitting around that, I felt like, needed to be heard in a unique way. So I wanted to start an SP12 instrumental series. And this first release has been very receptive and good response. So I'm happy about that, and because I can keep these going for a while. You know what I mean? But it's just one of those things where I made some beats back in like 90, 91, all the way to like 96. Something like that.
It's a lot of the same. I mean, if you're a Pete Rock fan like myself, the beats sound very similar. It's kind of like when you were doing the I&I album, the unreleased, and the album that you did with Baby Pa as well. That same type of grit and funk style to it. You could tell it is from that era if you're someone that's listened to your music.
Yeah, because, I still had the beats on disc, so, that helps.
Right.
When you still have those beats still. And that was the fun part, was, getting used to the old way of how I used to do things and, laying the beats down like I did back then.
So you said that this is a series, so there should be additional ones dropping.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's what's up. So I'm going to get you, I want to chop it up with you because if you follow Pete Rock on Twitter or Instagram, he's very outspoken about his New York sports teams. I know that you're a big-time Giants fan. I know that you're very disgruntled with the NFL over Kaepernick and a lot of social media, the social issues that are going on. But what were you thinking when the Giants drafted Daniel Jones?
I wasn't thinking at all, man. I'm not really feeling... Well, I can't even... I don't know. I'm feeling funny about that GM, that's all.
Got it.
Yeah, that's it.
What about the Knicks and potentially KD and Kyrie coming to the Knicks at the end of the year?
That would be a dream come true. That's what we all praying for. We don't know what's going to happen, but you know what I'm saying? But, it would be nice to have someone good on our team to bring others to our team. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Kind of going back to what we were talking about the NFL, if you could expound a little bit, you really go in on the social media. I mean, you're very much about the upliftment of black people, talking about the voices that try to suppress us and keep us from being heard. You really went in on Kaepernick. I noticed a lot of people, you take a lot of hate mail from your fans because you'll talk about, you'll put your opinion out there on something and you don't really care what people think. People will respond and come at you, but you really had a lot to say about Kaepernick and just the way that the NFL has disrespected athletes and social injustice. Wanted to give you a second or two to chop about that.
I mean, it was just disrespectful to see other guys get their jobs back and he can't get his job back. I mean, he's taken the team to the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying?
Real
and
talk.
People forgetting about that, and it's just like just because he kneeled, he gets all this flack and flaw, and it's crazy. It's just like, come on, man. That's real petty,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he is a good QB, and I feel he should have his job back in the NFL. And I don't know. I just don't like the way the NFL is right now.
Nah, I feel you. A lot of people that come on this show definitely echo those sentiments. Wanted to give you a chance because, like I said, it's very, very rare to get a legend, one of the GOATs on the show. If you could tell us just a little bit about your career, I don't want you to be too long-winded and ask you for too much. But, how did you get? It's obvious that you've been a crate digger your whole life. Anyone that follows you, that you've been following, you'll pick out one little itty-bitty piece of a sample that's so obscure and make a beat out of it and then lay some horns on it and all of that. But how did you get in the whole Money Earning Mount Vernon connection with you at Heavy D, R.I.P., CL Smooth? How did y'all all come together back in the late 80s, early 90s?
I mean, it all started from Heavy D. He started, everything, and I was basically under him, and, he believed in what I was doing and stuff, and we worked together and experimented and, decided to, do music together. And it was dope because we're family anyway. So, and that helped. And then, just experiencing his journey and meeting people under him and then, just making my decision and saying, hey, this is what I want to do. I was already a fan of Houdini and the Juice Crew and, the Fat Boys and all that stuff back in the 80s and Rakim and Kane, you know what I'm saying? But, they were like setting the tone for the 90s. And that's where you had us, like Q-Tip, Large Professor, myself, DJ Premier, guys of the 90s that were, making, good music.
Who would you say, because one of the things that I can attribute to you as well, I had never heard of I play a lot of West Side Gun, a lot of Benny the Butcher. I had never heard of those dudes. I found them through you because I messed with Rock Mars because you've done a lot of records with Rock Mars over the years. And I'm on your page and I hear a joint and I'm like, yo, that's hot.
Right.
And through that, I've bought, so West Side Gun owes you a lot of money from me because I've bought like 6 or 7 albums just because I saw it on your page. Who do you rock with that's some of the young bulls that's out in the industry today that you work with and really bump when you're riding around town?
Well, I definitely say the whole Griselda clique, and then I'll say the TDE clique, and J. Cole, people like that. You know what I'm saying? And there's Joey Badass, Action, a whole bunch of people, but I'm into good rappers.
Right.
People that sound that know how to rap over a beat. You know what I mean?
What would you say? I'm sorry, go on.
No, go. I was just gonna say and talk about a little something too.
What would you say if you could put on a brief clinic as we're up against the break? What makes you? Because anyone that listens to your music, you have a very wide array, a plethora of samples and different drum kicks and different horns that you use to put a track. Kind of walk the fans through, because I know a lot of people that listen to my show, they'll be curious about this. When you're trying to make a beat, like if you're putting an album out, you're putting 3 or 4 beats together for artists. How do you get into the studio and start from the bass line to the drums to the samples? Kind of walk us through how you do that from start to finish.
I mean, basically me having the thoughts of music in my head. It really doesn't matter what I start with. It could be the sample or the drums, but you know, I'm into melodies. So you know, as a producer, producers know that they you know, in their mind there's music that comes in their head, and you just kind of, you know, it's fun. It's fun. For me, it's fun to make music. That's where it really starts in your head, and then you just try to make it happen. Or you listening to a bunch of records, you know, that have melodies already, you know, and you just, you know, put it together the way we do it.
So like when you did P-strumentals and like A Little Soul, you're just bumping around town with those type of melodies just sitting in your head. That's just just your own personal genius. It's in your mind.
Well, with that one, it was really jazz samples and stuff like that, and just always listening to, like, you know, even something outside of jazz, like even Brazilian music. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that mixed together. So that's basically what P-strumentals 1 was, and then a couple of, you know, rare soul stuff. And, you know, it was like fun for me doing that album.
Wow. No doubt, man. It's wow. Before I let you go, as we closing up, do you have anything else that's coming out, or do you have any tour dates that's coming up, or anywhere that our listeners can find you and interact with you?
I got an album I produced for a rapper named Sky Zoo coming out called Retropolitan. That's gonna be dope.
Okay.
My favorite Pete Rock remix is the Jump Around remix, and the Public Enemy, I Shut 'Em Down. Yeah, those are my favorite classic remix of all times.
Wow.
I love you to death, Pete Rock. I love you to death, Pete Rock. And me and Pete Rock supposed to do something as well.
Dope.
No doubt, bro.
Dope.
Let's get it popping, man. Right?
Yo,
let's do it.
Thanks for coming on the show, Pete Rock, man. Living legend, Pete Rock. Lance Day
Make sure you get that album.
We doing some amazing
Return of the
stuff.
1200.
Cop that. Return of the
Right.
SP 1200. Just
right
out. We'll be
now.
back. One last segment. Lance Day Radio Network.
We salute you, Pete.
Just let 'em.